Hey, I'm Suvi from the Grounded Permaculture Regen. I'm just basically doing a bit of clearing around these trees. We've had the brush cutters come in and brush cut around them, but obviously they can't get too close to the trees. So where there's clumps of grass immediately around the trees, the clumps of grass are competing with the trees. So we just cut them a little bit around them, and that provides food mulch for the tree. And what I love about this is you're basically freeing up the tree from competition, giving it food at the same time, and that's going to kickstart the whole system again for another cycle. Some shade is good for the smaller trees because it stops the sun from getting in. So when you've got a tree that's slightly bigger, you can see that it's already well established, then you want it to go up. But when you've got a small tree, the root system is much smaller, and when we have the dry weather like we have at the moment, it's going to struggle if it is in the full sun because it's going to dry out very quickly and get stressed out and get burnt by the sun. So we actually will leave this for the small one. And this is riparian. So right here, if you scan the camera over there, that's the Nerang River. Yeah. So the funding that we get to do this job comes from the water board through another body that distributes it locally. And then the idea is that landowners along the river where they just have grass, they can get funding basically to plant forest. When it turns into forest and it gets bigger, it filters the water that drops from the rain. It basically holds all the banks together so you don't get erosion, so you don't get all the mud going into the river. And so the water gets cleaner and cleaner. So the source of the Nerang River is at the top of the valley here, and they fund landowners all the way down, or they fund tree planters like us to plant on these private properties along the river to hold the riverbank together and to clean up the water. Well, I've been doing this sort of work for most of my life with food forests, but at different times I've also worked with native regeneration, particularly rainforests. Yeah, so between growing food systems that are more resilient and able to cope with environmental changes, which means food forests essentially is what a main passion. The same could be said of native forests because they, all the services, like I explained before, in the world we live in today, where the forests are slowly getting cleared and civilization is expanding, and we know how that's damaged the environment. Climate change is one thing, but then there's all the other things associated with civilization that, in my view, are at least as bad, many of them worse. To actually restore native habitats is one of the most important and powerful things that we can do. And yeah, in terms of what I do with my life, growing food and restoring habitats are the two things that make me feel like I'm doing the right thing on this planet in the life that I have. I was in marketing. I was a salesman when I left uni and making money, training to see dollar signs. And then one night I had an awakening. I had a cathartic experience where I realized that how that was negatively contributing to the world. And then I completely just changed my focus. And I was still working, doing retail, but I worked more for more ethical organizations like health food store and organic food co-op and stuff like that. I changed my focus from just selling to make money to actually selling things that make a difference in positive ways. And then I learned about permaculture, or I found out about permaculture. And significantly, I met a couple of cousins who, one of them had lived in Australia and learned about permaculture, and then he moved to New Zealand. I was living in New Zealand at that time. And his cousin had bought an avocado farm. So he moved to his cousin's farm with his family and they were converting the avocado farm into a food jungle. So as many different types of food plants as they could find, they were putting into the avocado orchard and turning it into a multi-species food forest. And they'd been doing that for maybe 4 or 5 years when I met them. And I just saw their property and I was like, wow, this is what I want to do in my life. And yeah, so then I read all the books on permaculture. I'm 62 in a couple of weeks. And so this was in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And I've been doing that sort of thing ever since. But I've never owned land. So I've moved from place to place, planting food. That's been my life. Yeah, it's all interesting to me. All of it. We see signs of different life because all of a sudden grass, and there's just not much there, right? It's just grass. But as soon as you get this kind of situation, you get more species coming in, not just plant species, but more and more bird, like the increase in bird life that you get around when you plant trees. And then obviously the birds eat the berries and they go somewhere else and they put out, and then you get more plants. And usually that'll happen. The bird will go from one tree, eat the berries, go to another tree, eat the berries, go to another tree, then maybe let them go. And then those species will move around. So birds are the biggest disperser of trees, more than people. So an important part, this is a lily pilly. They have little red berries, which the birds love. And obviously then the birds will spread those through the forest. The other thing is, because we're doing the Riparian, the river, so we've had floods. So periodically you get a flood, and the flood will obviously, from the rainforest at the top of the valley, will have all kinds of seeds that have fallen in from the forest, and they will get, the river will come in the silt, and the seeds will just drop in the zone, and then you get palms coming up without us having to throw the seeds around.